Anoka is your average high school kid, who knows that he won't ever get a girlfriend in his life because he's not cool, rich, or smart. But one day, his life takes a complete 180 when he gets introduced to the power of magic and monsters. For once, not thanks to Truck Kuan, but through the hottest girl in his school. Turns out, knowing the principal can get you more than just an admission. Apparently he gets to date her daughter, Ayaka, as well. Anoka's only quirk is that he rides the same bus as Ayaka, and that his seat is next to her in the classroom. Despite sitting right next to her, they have never spoken to each other, and it looks like they live in completely different worlds with everyone flocking around her like some hungry ducks, while he is almost transparent. One day, he accidentally drops his eraser, and Ayaka picks it up for him, and we all know what that means for Ayaka's fan club members. They pull him out of his class, and push him on the ground, and then start beating him like the cannon fodder face he has, and tell him to never make the princess do anything for him again. After getting the floor wiped with his ass, he goes to the teacher's office to help them as he is on day duty, but then some girl walks up to him and takes the papers from his hand. You might think this is the start of some romance anime, but no, she's just a member of Ayaka's slaves, and she wants to keep Anoka away from her because Ayaka is on day duty as well. Just like that, his school days usually end up being the side character in Ayaka's story. One day after classes, he walks down to take the trash out, and wonders what his life is all about. Just then, he notices an obviously evil-looking bunny toy in the trash can, and picks it out to see what it's all about. On the toy's belly, there is a note that reads today's weather will be clean, but some school buildings may fall. He wonders what kind of fourth grader joke that is, but just then, a massive shadow starts appearing on the floor, and he looks up to notice the clock tower from the school building falling over him. He wonders if he will get ice skate into some world with beautiful girls as a hero, and sadly notes how he never got to even hold hands with a girl in this life. The building crashes on top of him, and that's how season 1 of Witchcraft Works ends. Or at least that's what he thinks, but then he opens his eyes in the arms of none other than Ayaka herself, and looks at her wearing some witch cosplay uniform. He starts panicking like the sissy-ass bitch-ass he is, but Ayaka tells him to stop moving or else he will fall down. He wonders what she is talking about, and looks down to see that they are standing in midair over a broom. In the distance, a cat-eared girl looks at them, and wonders if Ayaka is a workshop witch, and then snaps her fingers to order 2 big armored rabbit toy soldiers to attack them. Ayaka tosses Anoka in the air, and then jumps back to dodge their attack, and then burns them down with a fire spell before landing on her feet, and catching Anoka like a princess, and giving him a close-up shot of heaven. The rabbit toy soldiers get up and charge straight forward for them with their swords, but Ayaka shoots them with some fireballs, and then engages them in close combat with her broom and spells. She tells Hanoka to stay close to her, but he decides to do exactly the opposite like the idiot he is, and turns around to see a cat-eared girl waving at him from behind the building, and telling him to come over here in safety. He thinks that she must be Ayaka's friend, and he starts running towards her, only to find himself surrounded by an army of rabbit toy soldiers who immediately grab him by his arms, and make him get on his knees. One of the soldiers walks up to him with an axe, and they all prepare to turn him into nearly headless Nick's successor for the next Harry Potter movie. He wonders if all of this is a dream, but then, Ayaka jumps in by setting all the soldiers on fire, and saves him like the real protagonist she should have been. Anoka still thinks that this is all a dream, and starts shooting his shots by saying that she looks beautiful even in his dreams, and that there is no way she would bother giving him even a second of his time, much like save him like some Sailor Moon Harry Potter hybrid. She tells him that it's her mission, and that he must be confused, but he has nothing to worry about because she will protect him. He asks why, and she says because he is her princess. What? Anoka is a girl confirmed? Anoka wonders about the same thing, and starts questioning his gender, but then, Ayaka reminds him that their anime is not set in 2023, and there are still only 2 genders right now. She then tells him to just let her protect him, but he notices some of her hair set on fire, and wonders if he is the reason she was hurt. He asked her why she covered for her, and that it was his fault for being dumb and getting tricked even after she told him to stay close to her. He says that it is all his fault that her hair got burned, and that it is a gift from God, but then stops talking, and realizes that in reality, he's a pervert, and he's starting to simp after her as well. After all those years of getting bullied by her simps, he has now also joined the dark side without realizing. While he thinks about how disappointed he feels in himself, he notices one of the toy soldiers getting up to attack her from behind. He remembers what Sasuke did on the Naruto bridge arc, and jumps in front of her and takes the hit himself. He thinks he would look cool like him and say that his body moved on its own, but fall unconscious before he can even say his line. Ayaka walks up to him and gives him a soft hug, and I'm sure you all know why I said a soft hug instead of just a hug. Looking at him getting hurt, Ayaka becomes mad, and says that she should have turned them all to ashes in the first place, and then stands up to use her ultimate spell, Million Clover, and completely annihilates all the enemies with a massive burst of fire element. Later that afternoon, Anoka opens his eyes in Ayaka's private room in the school, and she tells him that it was all not a dream, and that she will explain everything some other day, but for now, they should go home. With that, they walk back together, and Ayaka explains that for now, the only thing he should know is that it is her duty to protect him because he is her master. He wonders what she means by that, but then, simply walks besides her, and they don't talk after that for some time. A few days later? Everything looks fine and back to normal, but this time instead of being a background character, he starts earning the jealousy and hatred of others when Ayaka decides to sit beside him on the morning bus to school. After that, they both walk together to their class, and Anoka feels like he will be killed if he stays beside her for a second longer. He pretends to have stomach issues, and runs outside, but then, gets caught by the bully simp squad. They grab him by his collar, and tell him to know his place, and decide to beat him up, but then, Ayaka walks up to them and tells them to let him go. She makes a bow out of his tie, and then tells everyone that she will burn anyone who tries to hurt him again. Later that afternoon during lunchtime, she sits down with Anoka and some girls from her fan club. She feeds him with her own hands, and says that she made it herself. Anoka feels happy being treated like this, but can't help feeling unwelcomed by the 20 other girls sitting around him. He thinks that he's just ruining all their fun, and stands up and says that he will go away and eat alone, before running away. Hearing this, Ayaka becomes mad, and sets everyone's lunch on fire while looking down. On the other hand, Anoka feels sad for being rude to her, and walks around the courtyard where the building fell over him. He notes that everything is back to normal, and nothing looks damaged at all. Just then, he turns around to see the cat-eared girl standing beside him. She tells him that the falling building thing was all an illusion, and then says that she has finally confirmed that he is a powerless dumbass to come to her without noticing anything. She walks up to him while changing into her witch gear, and introduces herself as Tampopo of the Tower Witches. She says that she is there to kidnap his dumbass, and then calls out her soldiers, but then, Ayaka arrives in the middle, and takes Anoka with herself. Tampopo says that she was waiting for her to come, and then orders her army of toy soldiers to attack them. This time, it's more than a few normal toy soldiers, and they all run her through with spears and swords from all sides. After the clash, Anoka opens his eyes while on the ground, and notices Ayaka covering him with more holes in her than he can count. She asks him if he is fine, and he wonders how this girl is even alive. He feels sad for being so weak, and says that he will believe in her, but for now, he needs to call an ambulance. Ayaka says that if he wants to make it up to her, he should promise to not run away during their lunch tomorrow. He says yes, and then says that she's bleeding so much, but she tells him that she has made of fire, and that it's all fine. She then tells him to just close his eyes and stay put, and then uses her magic, and sends all the soldiers back flying. She burns all the soldiers into ashes, and then walks up to Tampopo, while holding Anoka in her arms like a princess. She tells her that she's going to roast her furry ass now, and blasts her with a strong fire spell, but Tampopo calls her soldiers, and manages to barely escape from the scene with her ass caught on fire. After that, she tells Anoka to open his eyes, and to his surprise, everything is back to normal, all clean and clear without any damage. With that, they both walk back home, and call it a day. The following morning, 5 new students transfer into their school, and surprise surprise, it's none other than Tampopo and her fellow Tower Witches. A few days pass by, and Anoka keeps asking Ayaka to tell him the truth about all this witchcraft stuff, and why he's being targeted by Tampopo and the others. One morning, he decides to keep asking her until she tells him, but notes that she didn't ride the same bus as him that day. He gets off the school entrance, and changes his shoes, and then walks through his classroom, only to find Ayaka having some intense fun with the new students. He looks up the class board to note that he is actually at the Torture Society Club, and instead of wondering why they even have such a club at school, he asks her how he came there, and he's sure he went to his class. Ayaka tells him that she cast a spell on him that he would subconsciously walk here instead of their classrooms, so she could meet up with him. After that, she turns back towards the Tide Girls, and says that this is a witch hunt, and that she decided to get rid of them because they can be a threat to him. He wonders if that's true, and looks at them struggling for their lives. He tells her to at least take the gags out of their mouth so they can speak, and Ayaka does just that. She says that she wanted to finish them off early, but then, one of them ran away from her, so she was using them as bait to lure her out. Hanoka walks up to Tampopo and asks her why they are targeting him, and she says that it's no surprise that Miss Goody Two Shoes didn't tell him anything, and that simply puts she's after his body, and wants that white stuff inside him. Hearing this, Anoka starts blushing red, wondering if he heard all right, but Ayaka tells him to stop taking everything his enemies tell him at face value. Tampopo asks them if they should be so easygoing because they are yet to capture their last member, and just then, some kind of black slimy liquid starts dripping from the ceiling, and soon engulfs both of them. From inside the slimy liquid, Mei comes out and sets her friends free. After that, she kidnaps Anoka, and phases through the floor to the room beneath them, leaving her 4 friends to deal with Ayaka. She starts basking in her successful escape with her target, but forgets that she's just a minor villain and more of a comic relief, rather than the antagonist of the plot. Soon, Ayaka blasts the floor away, and looks down at her, with the other 4 witches defeated on the ground. She comes down and starts walking towards Mei, but she tells her to hold her horses or else, she will make her wolf pet bite Anoka's neck off. Ayaka tells him to not worry as she will cook this woman up in a second, and continues walking forward. Mei stands up with Anoka as a hostage, and then makes her pet bite into his neck to warn Ayaka. Instead of getting warned, Ayaka sets her on fire, and kicks her away, letting Anoka escape. Surprisingly, his neck is completely fine, and instead, the wolf's bite wound is on Ayaka's neck. Watching this, Mei makes her escape, and lets her friends retreat as well. Later that afternoon, Anoka opens his eyes in Ayaka's schoolroom, and notices that she is weaning a scarf around her neck in the middle of summer. She apologizes to him, and says that she wanted him to live a normal peaceful life, but if things continue like this, he will keep getting targeted by the Tower Witches. She then says that to get his normal life back, they must make a move themselves, and defeat the mastermind behind all this, but the only problem is that she doesn't know who it can be. Hearing all this, he thinks about the whole situation, and notes that it is his fault that she got hurt, and is hiding her wound with a scarf. He asks her to tell him everything, and to make him her apprentice as he doesn't want her to fight alone anymore. Meanwhile, somewhere inside a coffee and dessert shop, the school's head mistress, and Ayaka's mother, Kazanii, meets up with her old rival and villain, Chromua, after a short 130 years. Chromua tells her that she found out that Medusa's students picked a fight with her people, and she might want to join in the fun. Later that weekend, Anoka receives a call from Ayaka to meet her outside. He thinks that it looks like a date, but in reality, she is just telling him the truth about witches and everything as he asked. She says that they will go to the school, but on their way, they will make a stop at a food shop. While walking to their destination, Ayaka tells him a story about witches, and explains that in this world, there are 2 types of witches, the workshop witches, and the tower witches. The workshop witches are the protectors of this world, and they create workshops in places where people gather and build cities. Their job is to make sure that magic is not used for evil in this world, and they open workshops in different sectors and live there, and that's why they are called workshop witches. On the other hand, tower witches are selfish people who don't abide by any law. They use their magic for selfish purposes, and often cause harm to others. She then says that if he were to fall into their hands, the world would come to end, and everyone would die. After that, they go inside the food shop, and take a breather. After ordering their food, one of the waitresses walks up to them, and starts talking to Ayaka in a high-pitched voice. Ayaka keeps glaring at her with anger, but listens to everything she says, and notes that Chromua is in town, and more tower witches are coming here as well. Anoka notices that the girl is actually their school's student council's vice president, and that she is also a workshop witch like Ayaka. Once Ayaka finishes her drink, they walk out, and go to a shopping mall, and buy some clothes. While waiting for her to finish her shopping, Hanoka notices a cute girl helping a lost child, and walks up to her. The girl looks at him, and takes out her notes, and confirms that he's the same guy in the pictures. She then kicks the lost child away like some NPC, and jumps over Hanoko with a sword, and reveals herself to be a tower witch. His friends walk up from behind as well, and they attack Ayaka. Ayaka sets them on fire, and jumps forward to save her princess boy. One of the tower witches uses American-style, gun no jutsu, and starts blasting at them with a pistol. In response, Ayaka uses Batman-style, bulletproof cape technique, and deflects all the bullets. After that, she stands up, and copies Ace's fire pistol attack, and wipes the floor with her crispy burnt asses. With that, she walks up to them while carrying her princess boy in her arms, and lets them escape like Agent 007. After finishing their business at the shopping mall, they continue walking to the school, and Anoka tells her sorry for getting her caught up in all this trouble. He asked her if it won't be better for them to just seal him away or lock him up, but she says that you shouldn't worry about those things, and that she will protect him forever. After that, she tells him to work hard at his lessons because being her apprentice won't be easy. Hearing this, Anoka becomes happy, and resolves to grow stronger. Soon, they reach the school, and Ayaka reveals that the school is in fact one of the workshops, and then takes him to the head mistress office, and makes him meet her mother, Kazanii. Kazanii scolds Ayaka for breaking stuff at the mall, and says what good is a workshop who destroys others' property, and then tells Anoka that it is a custom at the workshop for witches to introduce their apprentices to their master on their first day, and that's why she told her to bring him here. The next day, Ayaka takes Anoka out for some training, and on their way, they are ambushed by Tampopo and her Team Rocket. Kana asks if it's a good idea to attack her, because she's practically invincible, and Tampopo says that they will go with a rapid stream formation, which basically means charging straight at her all Ooga Booga no brains. Ayaka tells Hanoka to watch closely, and then sends the brainless idiots flying just like their Pokemon counterparts into the sky. Obviously, Anoka learns nothing from this encounter. After that, they go back to their school, and Anoka opens his locker, only to be drowned by a tsunami of death threats and hate mail. One of them even threw in a dead voodoo doll of him. Ayaka notes that it must be the doing of her simps, and that he shouldn't worry as they won't harm him any longer. Despite that, he can clearly notice the hateful glares from everyone around him as he gets to sit next to her, get taught by her for exams, gets paired up with her during sports, and even gets to walk to it from school with the princess that they all admire. After school, Anoka prepares to do some magic practice, but Ayaka walks back with him to the bus station, and says that she knows how tired he is, so they will take a break today. They get inside the bus and ride to their home, but on their way, Ayaka notices a flying magical fish in front of her, and looks at the bus destination that changes from the next bus stop to dead end. She immediately gets up and turns around, and finds Chromua sitting in the back seat. The whole bus is empty, and even the driver is gone, and the bus is running on her magic. She tells Anoka to stay put, and faces Chromua, who walks up to her and introduces herself. Ayaka prepares to shoot a fire spell, but Chromua stops her movement by using her magic, Dictatorship. She then uses a powerful spell on her, but as she expects, there is not even a single scratch on Ayaka. Anoka doesn't know how OP Ayaka is, and decides to idiotically stand in front of her as if he's defending her. Chromua looks at that, and compliments his stupid ass, and tells him that no matter how many times anyone tries to kill Ayaka, they won't be able to harm her. After that, she walks forward, and simply stabs him in his stomach. Anoka falls on his knees, and starts crying, but she tells him to stop acting as if it hurts, and to get his sissy ass back on his feet. Anoka wonders what she is saying, but then realizes that it really doesn't hurt, and his body is actually unharmed. Just then, Ayaka falls on the ground, and Hanoka notices that she is bleeding from the same place he was stabbed. Chromua tells him that it is because of a special ability called damage transfer, which makes it so as long as they are close to each other, any injury on him is instead transferred to her. She further explains that the reason she has this ability is because she has signed a contract with him, which allows her to use the power within him to make herself an invincible witch, but then she must protect him from all harm. She then tells him that if he wants to save her, he needs to simply give her more of his power using the white stuff inside him, and no, she is not referring to the thing that you all gutter minds are thinking. She is talking about a spirit that lives inside him like the nine-tailed fox in Naruto. She gives him a magical candy and tells him to swallow if he wants to unleash his real power. After that, she tries to make him swallow it by force by feeding it to him herself, but Ayaka is not going to let some chubby pervert steal her first kiss from her pet, so she unleashes a burst of green flames and makes her fall back. Yes, it all happens through the power of plot armor. After that, she tells Anoka that for a little while, she will transform into something that she is not, and then takes some magic from him, and becomes the hottest mommy in the series of green flames and dragon light power. She instantly overpowers Chromua, and pierces through her barrier alongside her throat. But then, Chromua makes her retreat, and leaves them both behind on the bus stop. Hanoka wakes up first, and notes that Ayaka's wound is healed, but she's not waking up. He takes her to the hospital, and the nurse tells him that she is just tired, and she will wake up soon. After that, he goes back home, and notices a wrapped candy inside his pocket, and realizes that the magical orb that Chromua was trying to feed him. He decides to keep it hidden from Ayaka, and puts it inside his drawer, in case there's a time he really needs it. He also wonders about what Chromua said about Ayaka making a contract with him, and if it meant that he knew her before meeting her at the school. The next day, Ayaka books the whole gymnasium for them to train Hanoka. She gives him his own witch class gear, and starts explaining its features. She tells him to try jumping high, and he tries it. To his surprise, he feels a lot lighter and is able to jump almost as high as the gymnasium's roof. After that, she catches him princess style on his way down, and then tells him to try picking her up in the same way. Hanoka picks her up and notices that she is really light, and she tells him that wearing robe makes their body really light. Next up, she holds her right hand forward and twists her wrist a bit, and a magical broom appears in her hands. She tells him that the brooms are stored inside the capes, and they can be summoned by doing the gesture. Hanoka tries to do the same, but manages to only summon his disappointment when he fails to get the broom out. Just then, Ayaka's alarm rings and she says that their time's up. Suddenly, a lot of students open the door and walk inside for their practice, and Hanoka starts panicking and tells her that they should hide or others will see them in these robes. But to his surprise, no one pays attention to him, and he wonders if he has finally become so transparent that no one even bothers to look at him. But Ayaka tells him that this is thanks to the robes they are wearing, and it has a charm on it that prevents other people from noticing them, and they also subconsciously avoid them when walking as well. After that, they walk out and she asks him if he's afraid of heights, and then grabs him and rides on her broom far up into the sky. She says that they will practice flying like this until he can draw out his broom, and explains that normally workshop witches patrol the area like this to make sure everything is all right in their sector. Besides that, at any given moment, there are 5 strong witches in their high school who keep patrolling to make sure the school is safe. After flying for a while, even taking a nap, Ayaka flies them both back to the school, but on their way, Hanoka stops her and points her down, and says that a kid was being bullied and robbed and they should stop them, but Ayaka tells him that it is the job of the police, and as witches, their job is to protect the town from evil witches, and they don't interfere with the matters of normal people as they must never let them find out about their existence. Hanoka doesn't buy that excuse and summons his broom and jumps down. He barely saves the season from ending right here by managing to not fall to his death, and then rams straight into the bullies and makes them fall on the ground like some car accident. They all get on top of him and decide to beat him up, but Ayaka arrives in time, and burns them up to a crisp using her magic. Hanoka asks about the whole not attacking civilians thing, and she says that they were witches, and that's why they were able to notice him even though he's wearing the robe. Turns out the girl who is getting robbed is Hanoka's younger sister, Kazui's friend from the same school, and she's not a witch so she didn't see any of the magic happen. Meanwhile, in the city of Rothenburg, we see Medusa is sealed under the tightest security the city can provide. Somehow, she manages to break the seal and escapes from the prison, and the first people that she decides to visit are none other than her esteemed students, Team Tampopo Rocket. But before she makes contact with them, we see Tampopo and her friend sitting in a restaurant, and thinking of a plan to capture Hanoka and defeat Ayaka. It's a tough problem because one of them is practically invincible, and the other constantly produces Riz pheromones that keep her with him like a pet. During their discussion, Ren suggests that they stop attacking Ayaka at all, and wait for a moment when Hanoka is alone, and then capture him like that. They decide to go with this plan, but just before they walk out, Chromua comes to them and says that she would like to join in on their little plan. The next morning, Hanoka wakes up and goes down to freshen up and get ready for school. His sister Kasumi greets him good morning, and helps fix his bed hair with a comb and a hair dryer. While doing so, she asks him about the call he received from a girl last weekend. He doesn't want to tell her that the hottest girl in their school calls him master, so he decides to lie to her and says that it was just a calling system in their class, and the girl's number was before him, and she called him to say that they are going to have a fun day on Monday. Kasumi wonders if that's right, and asks him why he went out in a rush after receiving the call, and he slowly starts sweating. He makes up another BS excuse, but she catches up to him and tells him that she can very well burn his hair off with a hair dryer on max setting. She then says that she knows he went out with Ayaka, and she hears rumors as well because they go to the same school, and she often gets bullied because her brother is hogging the princess all for himself. She asks him what kind of a relationship they had. He wonders what to say, but then their mom Komichi tells them that breakfast is ready, and Kasumi lets him off the hook saying she will come into his room to talk later that night. Meanwhile, Ayaka is waiting for Hanoka at the bus stop, and gets ambushed by 3 witches from Tampopo's gang. After finishing their breakfast, Hanoka remembers that he had to meet up with Ayaka early today, and starts running to the bus stop. While running, he gets tripped over by a trap set up there by Tampopo and her rabbit toy soldiers. They capture him and put him on the ground, and she tells him that right now, her other friends will be beating Ayaka to a pulp because they know her weakness. Turns out that Chromua told them about the secret behind Ayaka's invincibility, and how separating her from Hanoka will make her weaker. Just then, 2 soldiers get yeeted off into space by a massive leg. Tampopo wonders where they went, but then looks up to notice a massive bear toy playing with her soldiers in its hands. Turns out it's all Kasumi is doing, and that she's actually a workshop witch as well. Tampopo becomes mad at her for ruining their plan that is going good for once, and takes out her one massive soldier, and soon it becomes a fight between two titans. Bunny and Bear fight each other, but the Bear Titan manages to push the Carrot Eater down. When it looks like the bear will win, the bunny strikes back with bunny eyes, and then takes him by surprise with an attack on its eyes. They both keep fighting with some wrestling moves. The bear tries to slam the rabbit into the ground, and then throws him to the wires like Goku by spinning it around. The rabbit falls back but then rebounds stronger with spiked gloves and poisonous gas. In the end, they both hit each other with a left hook, but the bear manages to land it first, and pushes the rabbit back on the ground. Just then, a wild skeletal T-Rex arrives, and uses a tackle. Kasumi turns back to see what kind of Pokemon that is, and notes that it's Rin with her dead pet. Tampopo and Rin surround her, and make it a 2 versus 1, but Kasumi uses her secret technique, Surprise Mother Flipper, and grows her bear into a colossal titan. After that, she squashes the bunny and the skeleton under her foot, and ends up destroying more buildings than the terrorists on 911. After that, she gets down from her bear, and walks up to Hanoka, who has been enjoying the show, while sitting on his ass and wishing he had some popcorn. Hanoka asks her what this was all about, and she asks him what he thinks who protected him all these years when the princess wasn't around. Hearing the princess, Hanoka holds her hands and says that they need to go save Ayaka, but Kasumi says that that cow of an OP monster doesn't need saving, only salvation, and points at her sitting on the bear's paw enjoying her book. Ayaka walks down, and Hanoka immediately runs to her and starts thanking her for being safe and fighting the witches for him. Looking at that, Kasumi becomes mad, and asks if she isn't the one he should be thanking instead. After that, she talks to Ayaka and tells her that they had agreed for her to protect him when he's home on holidays and weekends, while she's in charge of the bus and at school, but she went ahead and took him out last weekend. While they fight over his supposed custody, he realizes that everything Kasumi said in the morning about getting bullied and not knowing about Ayaka and him was a lie, and she says that she was just teasing him as is her job as his younger sister. After that, she tells Ayaka that the head mistress told them that there are over 30 tower witches in the town now and yet they have not made a move, which means something big is about to happen, so be on guard. In the meantime, we see Kazani turn on the TV, to see half the city destroyed from Kasumi and Tampopo's fight, and she wonders how much more in debt she will have to go to cover for all that. Back in the city, Ayaka says that maybe she would like to protect Hanoka 24/7, and they should move in together from now on. On the other hand, Chromua is cooking up something as she orders her Croco Boy to capture every single tower witch in the city, and gather them up at her base. At the same time, Kazani receives a call from Rothenburg, informing her about Medusa's breakout. The following day, Ayaka goes to meet Hanoka and Kasumi's mother to ask her permission to keep Hanoka with her 24/7. To their surprise, their mother Kamashi immediately agrees, and starts telling them a story from her childhood. She says that when she was in high school, she became friends with this strong girl who went by the title of Dragon Tooth. This girl was none other than Ayaka's mother, Kazani. They became such good friends that they decided to marry each other, but it wasn't 2024 yet, so they had to marry men, and eventually promised to make their children marry each other instead. This means that Ayaka and Hanoka were engaged even before they were born. Hearing all this, Kasumi refuses to let this pass like that, and says that she won't let her Onichan go away. Kamashi tells her that she needs to grow up now, and that she still insists on staying with him and makes him do stuff for her all day long. She says that it's her right as his younger sister, and when everything else fails. Kamashi pushes her on the ground, and holds her down and tells Hanoka to pack his stuff and run away. After that, they both walk out, and Ayaka asks him if he is fine living with her alone. He says that there is no guy in this world that wouldn't want to live with her, and then says that it almost feels nostalgic for him for some reason. Ayaka then tries to complete his thought by saying that it almost feels like we met each other long ago, and for some reason, no matter how many times we try, we can't seem to remember when it happened. She then says that her memories are hazy as well, but the only difference between them is that she remembers her mission, which is to protect him with her life. She then says that she believes someone close to their powers made them like this, and it seems all planned. Soon her car arrives, and the driver opens the door for them. Hanoka realizes that being the daughter of the head mistress must mean that she is rich as hell. They soon arrive at her house, or rather her empire of a building. They walk in, and are greeted by a tan maids, and Ayaka says that her room is on one of the upper floors, so they will take the elevator. While going up, Hanoka wonders who lives in a 41-story house, and then they arrive at Ayaka's room. They open the door and walk in, only to find the 3 maids waiting for them turned into stone, with Medusa is standing behind them saying she got tired of waiting for them. Ayaka gets inside and tells Hanoka that he should stay on the 12th floor and closes the elevator door behind her. Ayaka transforms into her fire mage battle form, and then starts fighting with the snake lady with full force. Meanwhile, on the other side of the door, Hanoka wonders why Ayaka told him to go away, because in the past, she would always tell him to stay close to her. He thinks that it's because the enemy is really strong, and then says that if he goes too far away, Ayaka would lose her invincibility, so instead of doing what she told him to do, he will do what he's best at, not following orders. Just then, the elevator's door melts down, and Ayaka falls on the floor. She tells Hanoka to take his broom out and run, because during fight scenes, he's only as good as cannon fodder that dies as collateral damage. However, Medusa has other plans for them, and she uses her curse to turn Ayaka into stone as well. Hanoka tells her to let Ayaka go and he will do as she says, but she says she can't do that because she's not dumb like him. Hanoka remembers that he still has that candy in his pocket because he brought it with him when they decided to live together. He takes it out and swallows a whole, releasing the seal of the white stuff inside him, and suddenly a white-haired vampire-like beauty appears in the room, and introduces herself as the White Princess, Evermillion. Medusa charges forward straight at her, but Evermillion blasts her out of the building alongside the building itself, and shows a fraction of her strength in that attack. Meanwhile, Kazaniai looks out the window to relax after taxing day at work, and makes it just in time to witness her multi-million-dollar empire get blasted into smithin. She thinks that it must be the doing of Medusa, and calls her assistant to gather every single witch in the town to hunt the snake down. On the other hand, Evermillion tells Hanoka that Ayaka turned into stone because he lacked belief in her strength, and to free her from this curse, he must raiment the trust and feelings he has for her. In simple words, he needs to kiss her like Snow White to wake her up from her sleep. After that, she vanishes away, and tells him to try to stay safe enough that he doesn't need to call her out often. Just then, Medusa flies back up, and this time, she brings her students the Team Tampopo rocket as well. Hanoka kisses Ayaka, and undoes her stone seal, and then sticks with her like a cockroach during the fight that follows. Ayaka blasts Team Rocket away with a single attack, and then engages with Medusa in a one-on-one. They keep fighting on equal terms, and Medusa tries to turn her to stone again, but Ayaka simply breaks through it with the power of firepower, love, and plot armor. During their fight, Hanoka starts feeling really tired and he falls asleep, while hugging Ayaka during their fight midair. Later that night, he wakes up in the school's nurse's office, and sees Ayaka sitting beside him. He asks her if she is okay and if all that was a nightmare. She says that it was all true, and moves the curtains behind her aside, to reveal Medusa and her students resting on the bed beside theirs. Hanoka starts freaking out, but Ayaka tells him that she will explain later, but they won't be attacking them anymore. After that, she puts the curtains back on and kisses Hanoka, and says that she is returning the favor. Later on, they decide to go back to his house because hers got blown up quite literally. Kasumi goes out for the night to answer Kazaniai's summon, while Ayaka and Hanoka meet up with his mom back home. But that's where the video ends. I will be doing more parts, so make sure to like and to subscribe to not miss it. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you next time.